The morning air in Harrington Heights was crisp, deceptively calm. Birds chirped in a rhythm that felt almost mocking against the tension building in apartment 4B. Detective Ethan Cole stepped out of his car, adjusting his coat as he surveyed the building's facade. From the outside, it looked ordinary, a modest brick complex, quiet streets, kids walking to school. But inside, tragedy had struck, and Ethan's instincts told him something about this case was off. "Accidental fall," the officer on duty muttered as Ethan ducked under the yellow police tape. Young woman, 23, no witnesses, apartment looked normal. Ethan frowned, crouching near the open door. Normal didn't mean accidental, not when there was a faint smear of blood near the balcony window and a chair overturned as if someone had fought to keep balance or escape. "Roommate says she wasn't alone," Ethan said, scanning the apartment with practiced eyes. Every surface, every object told a story. A spilled coffee cup, faint scuff marks on the carpet, a set of keys missing from the usual hook. Nothing screamed murder, yet nothing fit the accident theory either. Detective Rosa Kim arrived moments later, her sharp eyes immediately taking in the scene. "You think someone staged this?" she asked quietly. Ethan didn't answer. He didn't need to. His gut said yes, there was an order to the chaos here, a deliberate attempt to make it appear mundane. Across the room, a small journal lay open on Lena's cluttered desk. Its pages were filled with neat handwriting, notes, reminders, but also cryptic warnings. One line caught Ethan's attention. "They are closer than I think. I cannot trust anyone, not even those who claim to protect me." His pulse quickened. Someone had wanted to hide the truth, and Lena knew it. Ethan began questioning Maya, Lena's roommate. The young woman's hands shook as she recounted the night before. "I went to bed around 11. Lena was supposed to be in her room, but I heard a noise, like someone moving around. I thought she was just rearranging things, but..." Her voice trembled. "Then I woke up to nothing. She was gone. And the window, it wasn't like this before." Ethan nodded slowly, filing away every detail. Fear and guilt flashed across Maya's face, but Ethan noticed subtle inconsistencies in her story, hesitations, almost imperceptible shifts in tone. Not enough to incriminate, but enough to keep him alert. The building security footage told a similarly incomplete story. Cameras outside the apartment showed Lena returning that evening, bags in hand, but the crucial hours inside the building were inexplicably missing, a digital void where evidence should have existed. Something and someone was covering tracks. As Ethan walked through the apartment, he noticed small, odd details that didn't fit an accident. The balcony window had been forced open from the inside, but the latch wasn't broken in a typical way. There were faint scratches near the sill, as if someone had tried to climb out or push someone else. The carpet beneath was indented, suggesting a struggle. Ethan crouched to examine the marks, his mind running through possibilities. Could Lena have fallen accidentally while reaching for something? Maybe, but the signs pointed elsewhere, subtle, deliberate manipulation to mislead anyone investigating. "Detective Cole, you might want to see this," Rosa called from the desk, holding a small folded piece of paper. Ethan approached, carefully unfolding it. The handwriting was hurried, almost panicked. "Do not trust him. He will make it look like nothing happened. They are planning to silence me." Ethan's eyes narrowed. The words weren't just a warning, they were a declaration of knowledge, a clue that Lena suspected foul play. Outside, the quiet streets of Harrington Heights seemed indifferent to the tragedy within. Parents waved their children off to school, joggers ran past, and the early morning sun glinted off cars parked along the road. Life carried on, oblivious. But inside, Ethan could feel the weight of unseen eyes. He knew the danger wasn't just theoretical. Someone had orchestrated this scene, and someone was watching him now, perhaps monitoring every step, every movement. The thought was chilling, but it fueled him. He returned to the journal, flipping through pages filled with appointments, phone numbers, and cryptic messages. One page had a name circled repeatedly, Dominic Vale, a local businessman with a reputation for influence and secrecy. Another line hinted at financial irregularities, people being threatened, and an ominous phrase, "If I disappear, look at them first." His mind raced. This wasn't a random accident. It wasn't even a simple murder. Lena had stumbled onto something much larger, something dangerous enough to take her life. By late afternoon, Ethan had compiled preliminary notes and evidence, but the pressure to label the case as an accident grew. Lena's father, a prominent figure in the community, made a formal visit to the precinct, his presence heavy with expectation. "This should be handled quickly," he said, voice calm but firm. "We don't want unnecessary attention." Ethan studied him carefully. There was grief, yes, but also control, an unmistakable insistence that the narrative be contained. He made a mental note. The man might be grieving, or he might be shielding someone, or himself. Back at the apartment, Ethan noticed something odd near the kitchen door, a faint set of footprints, partially wiped, leading towards the fire escape. Whoever had been here last had known exactly how to leave little evidence while also creating the illusion of an accident. He crouched, tracing the prints with gloved fingers. The subtle pattern suggested urgency, panic even, but controlled panic, like someone trained to manipulate a crime scene. Rosa, standing nearby, broke the silence. "We're not dealing with amateurs here." Ethan didn't respond immediately. He felt it in his gut. This case was just the tip of something much larger, something that threatened to shake the very foundation of the town's justice system. As night fell, Ethan sat in the apartment reviewing Lena's journal under the harsh glow of a desk lamp. Every entry painted a picture of a young woman aware of danger, trapped in a web of secrecy and corruption. One phrase, scribbled hurriedly in the margin of a page, caught Ethan's attention. "If anything happens to me, follow the clues no one will dare to see." Ethan leaned back, tension coiling in his chest. Lena's voice seemed to echo in the room, a warning that justice in this town was fragile and that someone powerful had already decided the outcome. He glanced at the broken window, the smeared blood, the overturned furniture, and understood the chilling reality. This case should never have happened, and if he wanted the truth, he would have to navigate a darkness that reached far beyond a single apartment, far beyond a single death. The city slept outside, indifferent, while inside, the first pieces of a dangerous puzzle had begun to fall into place. Ethan knew the journey ahead would test him, push him to moral and personal limits, and reveal truths that the town might not survive hearing. And yet, he couldn't turn away. He never did. Part 1 ends with Ethan holding Lena's journal, determination hardening in his eyes, aware that every second counts and that the line between justice and chaos was thinner than he could imagine.
Detective Ethan Cole couldn't shake the feeling that every step he took was being watched. Harrington Heights had a quiet charm, but behind its tidy facades, shadows thrived. The deeper he delved into Lena Harper's life, the more he realized how little anyone knew about her or the danger she had uncovered. Rosa Kim had spent the morning cross-referencing Lena's phone records with her journal. Names, numbers, and cryptic codes hinted at meetings that no one else seemed to know about. A recurring contact, DV, matched Dominic Vale, the businessman Lena had circled repeatedly. Vale had influence that reached the city council, local law enforcement, and, Ethan feared, the courts themselves. "They're all connected," Rosa muttered, her eyes scanning the spreadsheet. Lena stumbled onto something massive, something that could ruin careers, or worse. Ethan nodded, rubbing his temples. And now someone wants her gone. The first real lead came from a seemingly innocuous source, a neighbor named Tom Briggs, an elderly man who often walked his dog past Lena's building. He had noticed unusual activity the week before Lena's death: late-night visitors, shadowy figures coming and going, and, most concerning, a black SUV parked across the street for hours with tinted windows. Ethan jotted it down. Could be a coincidence or a stakeout, he said, but something in Tom's anxious demeanor told him this wasn't idle observation. Later that day, Ethan decided to revisit Lena's apartment. Alone, he retraced her steps, examining every detail for something the initial investigation might have missed. That's when he noticed it. A faint fingerprint on the balcony railing. It didn't belong to Lena or anyone in the apartment. He bagged it carefully, knowing that matching it could reveal the first tangible link to someone who had been there the night Lena died. But even as he worked, a creeping unease settled over him. Someone had clearly been monitoring the investigation, leaving subtle signs of interference. Back at the precinct, things escalated quickly. Ethan's car had been tampered with, brake lines cut just enough to be dangerous, and an anonymous note left under the windshield wiper. "Stop digging, or next time it won't just be your car." Rosa's eyes darkened. They're sending a message, and they're bold. Ethan didn't flinch. Threats weren't new to him, but these felt personal. Someone powerful didn't just want Lena's death covered up. They wanted anyone who knew the truth silenced. The next lead came unexpectedly. Lena's laptop, confiscated from the apartment, had been partially wiped. Ethan called in a forensic expert, and hours later they recovered fragments of encrypted emails. Lena had been communicating with a whistleblower inside Vale Enterprises, hinting at embezzlement, bribes, and threats. She knew too much, Ethan said grimly, and now whoever she exposed wants to make sure she can't talk. As he pieced together the fragments, a pattern emerged. Lena had been tracking financial transactions between Vale and certain city officials, money funneled into shell companies, offshore accounts, and even to individuals connected with law enforcement. Whoever was orchestrating this cover-up was meticulous, leaving no easy trail, but Lena had left breadcrumbs, hidden clues in her journal, her emails, and her social interactions. Ethan realized he was chasing a ghost, powerful, invisible, and lethal. That evening, Rosa received a disturbing call. A masked voice warned her to stop pursuing the case. They had her number and her schedule. Fear flashed across her face, but she refused to show it. "We're not backing down," she said, determination in her voice. Ethan felt the weight of the threat. Someone in Lena's world and in the city itself had both the means and the audacity to strike at anyone investigating. He couldn't go to the media. They would spin it as sensationalism and give the perpetrators more cover. The danger became undeniable when Ethan returned to the precinct to find an unmarked envelope on his desk. Inside was a photograph, him entering Lena's apartment, taken from inside the building. Someone had been watching, tracking him, knowing his every move. Rosa leaned over his shoulder. "This isn't just about Lena anymore. This is about us." Determined, Ethan dug into Lena's personal relationships. She had been careful, almost paranoid, but even she couldn't hide everything. He interviewed friends, co-workers, and acquaintances, building a web of potential suspects. Some seemed innocent, but each carried a shadow of doubt. One name kept resurfacing: Victor Lang, Lena's co-worker. He had been unusually interested in Lena's findings at Vale Enterprises, asking probing questions about her research and insisting he could help. Ethan didn't trust him. There was something rehearsed about his concern. Another suspect was Lena's father, Richard Harper, whose grief seemed genuine, but whose insistence on quickly labeling Lena's death an accident was troubling. Ethan began to suspect that Richard might be shielding someone, or perhaps himself, from exposure. And then there was Dominic Vale. The more Ethan learned about him, the more dangerous he appeared. Powerful, calculating, untouchable, Vale seemed untouchable legally and socially.
Lena's warnings in her journal weren't paranoia, they were precise observations about someone who could destroy lives without consequence. Late that night, Ethan stayed at the precinct mapping connections and creating a timeline of Lena's final days. Hours of work revealed subtle but alarming coincidences, missing security footage, altered witness statements, and phone logs that had gaps during critical hours. He knew one thing: someone inside law enforcement was actively sabotaging the investigation, perhaps even guiding the narrative to make Lena's death appear accidental. And whoever it was could strike again at any moment. Ethan leaned back in his chair, staring at the mess of timelines, photos, and documents. Rosa sat nearby, silently supportive, but even she looked tense. "Something tells me Lena wasn't just lucky to discover this," Ethan said, voice low. "She was smart enough to realize the danger, and now we're in it too." Rosa didn't respond immediately. She simply nodded, her jaw tight. Both of them understood the stakes. This case wasn't just about solving a death. It was about surviving a web of corruption and deceit that had stretched far beyond Harrington Heights, touching the very people sworn to uphold the law. As dawn approached, Ethan's mind raced with possibilities. Every lead seemed like a trap, every name a potential enemy. Yet he couldn't stop. Lena trusted him, even from beyond the grave, to see the truth, to uncover the shadows hidden behind smiles and power suits. He glanced once more at Lena's journal, now resting on the desk. The cryptic messages, the warnings, the trails she had left, it all pointed to one conclusion: the case that should never have happened was just the beginning. Ethan stood, tension coiling in his chest. Whoever had killed Lena, whoever had erased the evidence, whoever had sent the threats, they were still out there. And if they weren't stopped, no one else would be safe.
The rain had left Harrington Heights slick and reflective, casting the city in a muted gray glow. Detective Ethan Cole moved carefully through the streets, his coat pulled tight against the chill, every sense alert. Lena Harper's death had been dismissed as an accident, but the deeper he dug, the clearer it became. This was no random act. Someone powerful had orchestrated every detail. Ethan's first stop was Vale Enterprises, Dominic Vale's glass and steel office building. From the outside, Vale exuded charisma and authority, a businessman respected in public, feared in private. Ethan knew that confronting him would be dangerous, but he had no choice. Lena's journal, now fully digitized and cross-referenced with her emails and bank transactions, revealed financial irregularities linking Vale directly to city officials, law enforcement, and even a few judges. Inside the building, Ethan's presence did not go unnoticed. Security cameras tracked his every movement, and uniformed guards trailed him through the lobby. He met Vale in his office, a sleek, minimalist space dominated by floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. "Detective Cole," Vale said smoothly, rising to shake his hand. His smile was polite but cold, the eyes behind it calculating. "I hear you've been asking questions about Lena Harper. Tragic, what happened?" Ethan didn't flinch. "Tragic, yes, but not an accident. And the more I dig, the more I see patterns you're very familiar with." Vale's smile didn't falter. "Patterns. Detective, don't mistake business complexity for criminal intent. Lena was a smart girl, too smart, perhaps. Sometimes curiosity has consequences." Ethan's jaw tightened. Vale wasn't denying involvement. He was reminding Ethan of his power. Every word, every gesture was carefully measured, a subtle threat disguised as civility. Back at the precinct, Ethan and Rosa compiled a growing list of suspects. It wasn't just Vale. The corruption spread farther than they had imagined. Officials in the police department, judges in the city courts, even members of the media who had been fed carefully crafted misinformation, all were pieces of a deadly puzzle. The danger became very real when Rosa returned from a routine interview to find her apartment broken into. Nothing was stolen, but every drawer and cabinet had been rifled through. On her pillow, a single card lay. "Stop, or next time it will be you." Rosa didn't flinch. Instead, she photographed the note and tucked it away as evidence. "They're trying to scare us. It won't work." Ethan, however, knew better. This wasn't a random threat. It was precise, calculated. Whoever orchestrated Lena's death was now escalating, making it clear they could reach anyone, anytime. The breakthrough came when Ethan received an anonymous tip. A whistleblower within Vale Enterprises had been hiding evidence, fearing for their life. The tipster left a USB drive with encrypted files detailing the web of corruption, embezzled funds, bribed officials, falsified reports, and a list of key players. Ethan and Rosa worked late into the night to decode the files, revealing shocking truths. Lena hadn't just uncovered financial crimes. She had stumbled onto a network capable of manipulating law enforcement, influencing verdicts, and silencing anyone who got in their way. The depth of the corruption was staggering. The same officials who were meant to deliver justice were complicit in hiding the truth. Ethan leaned back in his chair, absorbing the implications. This isn't just about one murder. It's about a system built to protect itself. Rosa nodded, and now we're the targets. The danger escalated further when Ethan noticed a pattern in the anonymous threats and surveillance. Someone had been tracking not only him, but Rosa as well. Their movements, schedules, and even conversations seemed monitored. Ethan realized they were being herded, pushed into corners, tested for reactions. One night, while following a lead on a suspect connected with Vale, Ethan narrowly avoided an ambush. He had been walking down a deserted alley when a car screeched around the corner, headlights blinding him. A man leapt out swinging a metal pipe. Ethan reacted instinctively, dodging the attack, and chased the man into the shadows. The attacker vanished before backup arrived, leaving only one clue, a business card from Vale Enterprises, carelessly discarded. "It's escalating," Ethan said grimly. "They're testing our limits, seeing how far we'll go." Tensions rose when Ethan confronted Richard Harper, Lena's father. Initially grieving and cooperative, his composure faltered under scrutiny. His insistence that Lena's death be labeled an accident now seemed less about grief and more about shielding someone, or himself. "She was going to expose something dangerous," Ethan said. "You knew, didn't you?" Richard's hands trembled. I wanted to protect her. I wanted to protect this family. But I didn't kill her. I swear it." Ethan studied him carefully. He believed the man was guilty of some complicity, but not the murder itself. Someone else had orchestrated Lena's death. Someone higher up, more powerful. The final piece fell into place when Ethan discovered a secret ledger hidden in Vale's private safe. It listed payments, threats, and falsified legal documents, proof that a judge in the city, Judge Malcolm Crane, had been orchestrating the cover-up, using his authority to manipulate outcomes and silence whistleblowers. Crane had everything to lose if Lena's findings became public, and Vale was merely a pawn in a larger game. Ethan realized the horrifying truth. The legal system itself had been weaponized. Those who were supposed to uphold justice were actively preventing it. Ethan leaned back in his chair, absorbing the implications. This isn't just about solving a murder. It's about surviving long enough to expose the truth. Rosa nodded, "And the system is rigged against us." The climax of Part 3 begins with a tense stakeout outside Judge Crane's mansion. Ethan and Rosa watch as vehicles come and go, noting every detail. Suddenly, a black SUV pulls up, an exact match to the one seen near Lena's apartment days before. Inside sits a familiar figure, Dominic Vale.
The two detectives realize they are now in a high-stakes game of cat and mouse. Every step must be calculated. One wrong move could alert Crane and Vale, giving them time to erase evidence or eliminate witnesses. Ethan clenches his jaw, feeling the weight of the case pressing down. This isn't just about solving a murder anymore. It's about surviving long enough to expose the truth. Rosa nodded, and the system is rigged against us. As night deepens, lightning flashes across the skyline, reflecting in the puddles on the street. The storm mirrors the chaos and danger surrounding them. Ethan reviews the evidence one last time before the impending confrontation. Every piece, every clue, every subtle detail pointing towards a conspiracy so deep that exposing it could shake the city to its core. Part 3 ends with Ethan and Rosa watching the mansion from a distance, rain pouring, adrenaline coursing, aware that the next move could be their most dangerous yet. The conspiracy is no longer hidden. They've found the heart of the darkness, and it's more dangerous than they ever imagined.
The rain-soaked streets of Harrington Heights reflected the city's flickering neon lights, casting long, distorted shadows across the sidewalks. Detective Ethan Cole and Rosa Kim crouched behind a low wall across from Judge Malcolm Crane's mansion, the culmination of weeks of investigation finally within reach. Inside, the web of corruption Lena Harper had uncovered pulsed at its darkest heart. Ethan's grip tightened around the evidence, the ledger from Vale Enterprises, photos, emails, and the decrypted files proving financial embezzlement, bribery, and threats. Every name in the ledger pointed to a person who could destroy their lives, careers, and the very idea of justice. "This is it," Ethan whispered, voice low. "If we move now, we either expose everything or become their next target." Rosa glanced at him, her expression hard. "No one else can do this. Lena trusted us. If we fail, she dies again, this time in the eyes of the law." Inside the mansion, Judge Crane sat behind a polished oak desk, glancing at documents and computer screens. Dominic Vale, impeccably dressed and confident, leaned against the window, a smug smile on his face. Both men had underestimated Ethan. They assumed no one could reach them. Suddenly, the front door creaked. Crane's assistant had left it unlocked, a minor oversight, but one Ethan would exploit. Moving silently, the detective slipped inside, blending with the shadows. "You shouldn't have come here," Vale said, his voice sharp, betraying his calm exterior. "You're risking everything." "We're risking nothing," Ethan replied evenly. "Everything you've done is already documented. You can run, hide, or destroy evidence, but it's already too late." Vale's smile faltered. Crane, however, remained composed, though a subtle tension rippled through his posture. He understood that his empire of influence, carefully constructed over decades, was crumbling. The confrontation escalated quickly. Crane demanded they leave, threatening to call the authorities. Ethan produced the ledger and laptop, laying the evidence on the desk. "Every bribe, every cover-up, every threat, you're all implicated. The ledger is real, and we have witnesses. It's over." Crane leaned back, smirking. "You think exposing me changes anything? The system protects people like me. You don't understand power." Ethan's eyes hardened. "I understand justice, and you've just made it personal." Rosa stepped forward, her hand resting on her service weapon. "No one else can do this. Lena trusted us. If we fail, she dies again, this time in the eyes of the law." The following was a tense, almost cinematic standoff. Vale lunged for the phone to summon security, but Ethan moved faster, knocking it aside. A brief struggle erupted, shoving Vale back against the window. Rain pelted the glass, and outside, sirens began to wail, a backup Ethan had discreetly called earlier, ensuring Crane's influence could not shield him completely.
Crane realized the tide had turned. Officers began arriving, surrounding the mansion. Vale's confident facade crumbled under the pressure, knowing his powerful connections couldn't protect him indefinitely. But the battle wasn't over. The media and political apparatus had already been compromised. Some officials actively obstructed Ethan's efforts, forcing him to navigate carefully. Arrests could be made, but full exposure of the conspiracy would require precision and timing. Ethan confronted Crane directly. "You manipulated the law, controlled the courts, silenced whistleblowers, and Lena found out. She paid the price, but we're not letting her death be meaningless." Crane's voice was cold. "You think you've won. You've only scratched the surface. The city is mine. You'll see. Even if I fall, the system bends back into my hands." Ethan didn't flinch. "Maybe, but some of us refuse to let it bend. Today, justice is ours to deliver, even if imperfect." Officers moved in. Crane was taken into custody, his composure replaced by silent fury. Vale, too, was restrained, and his connections began unraveling as the evidence went public. The city buzzed with shock, revelations spreading quickly. Yet the victory was incomplete. Ethan knew the system's cracks ran deep. Some players would escape, bribes and threats still lingering like shadows over the city. Not everyone implicated could be prosecuted without political fallout, leaving a bitter taste in the detective's mouth. Standing outside the mansion, drenched from the rain, Ethan and Rosa reflected on the journey. "Did we do enough?" Rosa asked quietly. Ethan shook his head slightly. "Enough to honor Lena, enough to stop them today. But the truth, the full truth, that is, that's bigger than one case, bigger than us. Some people will still slip through the cracks." Rosa glanced at the sky, the clouds beginning to break. "She would have wanted us to keep fighting, no matter what." Ethan nodded, holding Lena's journal close. It had become more than evidence. It was a testament to courage, intelligence, and a relentless pursuit of justice, even in the face of impossible odds. In the weeks that followed, the city was rocked. Judge Crane faced legal scrutiny, though some charges were watered down due to bureaucratic loopholes. Vale and his associates were publicly exposed, their influence diminished, but not entirely gone. Ethan and Rosa faced criticism from colleagues and the press, some labeling them reckless for confronting such powerful figures, but their determination earned them respect. Harrington Heights slowly returned to normal, yet a tension lingered in the air. Citizens spoke in hushed tones about the case that should never have happened, and the shadow of corruption remained a cautionary tale. Ethan visited Lena's grave one rainy evening, placing her journal atop the headstone. "We did what we could," he whispered. "Your death wasn't in vain." Behind him, Rosa stood silently, understanding that the fight against corruption was never truly over. Some battles were won, others postponed. The line between justice and vengeance was thin, and sometimes the darkness of the system demanded sacrifices that the law couldn't account for. As night fell, Ethan returned to his apartment, the weight of the case settling over him. On his desk, Lena's journal lay open, pages filled with cryptic notes and warnings. His mind raced with unanswered questions, threads of the conspiracy still unresolved. He knew this wasn't the end. The system might have bent today, but tomorrow it could shift back, and those who had escaped would return to influence and power. Ethan had learned that justice wasn't always blind. It was often obscured by wealth, fear, and secrecy. Yet he also learned that courage, perseverance, and the pursuit of truth could cut through even the darkest shadows. Lena started the fight, and now, in her memory, Ethan and Rosa would continue it. The story closes with Ethan holding the journal, gazing out over the city skyline, rain dripping from the eaves, lights reflecting in puddles below. The battle against corruption had been won in part, but the war for true justice was far from over. A dark turn in the system, yet one that could still be challenged.